All right, I made the Arathi Cosmos model in Paint 3D if you're interested. It may help visualize cosmic overlaps, how forces got power. I don't think any three-dimensional chart is really going to get the point across. I really think that I'll maybe take a look. I really think we're overcomplicating this. I really think the main point of the Arathi thing is really to just get people to realize a couple things. One, the old gods are not just the void. People are thinking way too much about the shape. Guys, the book is trying to literally outright tell you that because the void is often, or the old gods are often primarily perceived to use void magics, that we think that they're just from the void. It's trying to get us to realize things that, like, that's not true. That, as I've said for years, they are combinations of other forces. Life has to be involved in some capacity. Death has to be involved in some capacity. They can't just be void. The same thing with the Naru. Just because you perceive them as primarily light, that's not what they are. They're either light and void, or they're light and order, or they're light and life. They are definitely combinations of things. Same with the Titans. I've said this for years. Argus, Titan of Death. Aman'Thul, Titan of Time. Norganon, Titan of Fate. Space and Time. Eonar, Life. Golganeth, etc., etc. Tried to put that out there because it's important to realize, like you're saying, forces do overlap. And what you're supposed to be thinking about is what happens when you take two forces like fire and water. Okay? And you combine fire and water, what do you get? More than likely, you're going to get steam. And then if you take steam, which is a quasi-element, para-elemental, something elemental combination, and then if you take earth and air and you get dust or something like that, or earth and negative energy, or you get dust or something along those lines, right? And then now you have two combination magics. And then what happens if you take these two forces and put them together? What happens if you take, dust and you take steam and you put them together, right? Like, it's the same concept. What happens when you take light and you combine it with life? And what do you get from that? And then if that were to be combined with fire, what is a result of that? It's trying to show you that there are nearly infinite possibilities. That's the point. Is that for every individual force, you can combine it with something else, and for each combo force, it can be combined with another single or combo power as well. It's just trying to show that, like, what we perceive to be 6 cosmic forces is not so simple. There's way more than that. There are 6 monopolarly identifiable cosmic forces, but that leads us to the confusion that everything must categorically fall into one of those designations purely. That's why we say old gods must be void. No, not true. Not true. But the way that the cosmic chart is labeled makes you think that. That's what the Arathi are trying to get across, is that things are not as separate as they seem. And even if they are perceivedly separate, once they combine, they make a new power. We're seeing that happen in Aj-Kahet. We're seeing someone, we're going down, we're watching the spirit and arcane energy of the dream melding with this black blood and with this darkness down here. We're seeing flesh happening. We're like, what the fuck? Like, they're trying to get us to think in terms of, frankly, the most simply put, in terms of alchemy. It's also from a Titan perspective, and they might be trying to order things that can't be. Yes, I mean, it's from a perspective of order in general, because people will say, oh, well, you have the broker cosmology chart. Yes, the same people who regard themselves as order, just like the Titans. So it's like, yeah, most of the... And if you're going to try to tell me that the Arathi perspective isn't also touched by concepts of order, then you're wrong. Science in general pertains directly to order, to categorization, to definition, to proclamation. And I think that if you have a highly structured society, especially one based in the light, who believe that they have advanced cosmological conceptual views of the universe, I think that they are probably very orderly. And honestly, when you look at the abilities associated with light classes like Paladin, they're very much associated with law and order. Long Arm of the Law, Seal of Order, it goes on and on and on. So yeah. Cosmology can maybe be akin to Sun Tzu's Art of War Part 9. There are not more than 5 cardinal tastes: sour, acrid, salt, sweet, bitter, yet combinations of them yield more flavors than can ever be tasted. Yep. Firim talks about this in Zereth Mortis as well. He says, here, let me get you the quote. Firim pre-exile. This is what Firim says. He says, the dawn of all things, which, by the way, this is so this is from Expedition Report A37J Part 1. This is from Broker Al-Firim before he becomes Firim the Exiled. So this is something called the dawn of all things. I want you guys to remember that, because what is Argus cast? And what does Xalatath sometimes say at the end of Mythic Plus dungeons right now? You've aided in the end of all in bringing about the end of all things. The dawn of all things, the end of all things. I just think these things are correlated. He said, it is no small irony that the first specimens of their language, the first ones, remain the most inscrutable. Perhaps that's what hindered my progress for so long. Regardless, the particulars are beyond my present ability to decipher. With time, I'm certain I will succeed, but not yet. There are references to forces so primal that we have no frame of reference for them. Roiling and churning, or measured and deliberate. Kind of thing, I think both. I think Azeroth and Argus. The words here have multiple meanings. I must set them aside for now. Listen to this part. He said, what is clear is that great powers took shape. How many? There are numbers within numbers, my friends. At first, I thought only 2, until I perceived an infinite array. Oh, the terror of it. But as of late, I have settled on 6, possibly 7, but the last might be an artifact of the geometry, a fractal. I will tell you what I know. Also, by the way, I saw a band called Fractal this weekend. I thought that was pretty interesting. These 6 forces existed in strife. Well, not strife in the way one such as you or I would see it. Opposition, surely, but whether malignant or benign is unclear. So Firim cannot deduce malice or malicious intent or benevolence from these forces. He's almost kind of putting it like they're not necessarily good or evil. They're just kind of in opposition to one another by nature. He says there was imbalance until there was a need for something more. They came together, or were brought together, depending on how one interprets the fractal. I think that's directly referring to the Titan Pantheon, the seat of the Pantheon, the Titans being different forces and powers coming together. The Pantheon, so seemingly united in purpose, is vulnerable to fracturing. Were they brought together, or did they come together? Well, based on the story of Aman'Thul and the origin of the universe, he brought them together by waking them up and bringing them together. He said, and gave form to their design. He said, forged, which is very Titan-coded, scribed, shaped. The exact word is elusive. Each architect gave a portion of themselves, and thus the pattern was drawn. It's from here that the language becomes clearer. With a framework in place, Rezek, thank you very much, man. 7, thank you very much for the Prime as well. With a framework now in place, all that we now comprehend came to be. As if reality were nothing more than a fungus growing upon the frame. 6 forces, now in balance. And from their intersections arose others. A simple structure, growing infinitely more complex. Now do you understand why my translations took such time? Why they still elude me? It grows. It changes. Glyphs and geometry and fractals everywhere. Forgive me. As each emptiness abated and grew fuller, the pattern alone was not enough. That's an interesting one there. As each emptiness abated and grew fuller, the pattern alone was not enough. Shapes arose within shapes, begotten by the six to beget more. Now it grows clearer, more certain, each layer more fathomable to a meager mind such as yours. 6 realms, many intersections, countless fractals. In balance? Possibly. But that might be wrong. If 6 equal 1, then what is the other? The one outside the pattern. I must return to this chapter later to afford greater clarity. It is possible I possess a propensity to ramble. And I think that what Farim is talking about here is very much in line with the concept that we're discussing. That even though it can be interpreted as 6 different powers, they came together and basically combined and grew upon this framework that comprises reality itself. And that there are 6 forces that are actually one force, and the 7th force is the other, the opposite, so to speak. So it almost looks like yin got broken up into 6, and yang is still there as the 7th, to me. And that very much screams Titan Pantheon. 6 Titans, a 7th whose nature is unclear. The 7th covets what the 6 hold fast. The fulcrum wavers, all will be undone.